electric units is unavailable this evening, so we will go over tonight what's on the agenda with the various departments for their upcoming budget for this fiscal year, so fiscal year 19. Why don't we start with highway and cemetery? Keith?
How's everybody doing tonight?
Great.
Good.
How are you?
Not bad, not bad.
Good winter?
Weather's nice, yes. So far, I've been lucked out. Basically, my budget really hasn't changed much from last year. So I'll go real quick with what I have here. Personal services is $676,037.30. Charges and expenses, it's $97,150. Service treatment is $8,000. And repairs of private ways is $1,000. That's for the 420 account. The snow's always the same, it's $80,000. We've gone over probably around $72,000 this year in snow, but just because of the winter and the salt, and you know, $80,000 doesn't go very far. I've had to call all the subs out probably twice, and a lot of these storms been in weekends, so you know, it just adds up pretty quick. But I think that's pretty good still. That ain't a bad figure. So,
Are you still working with the consortium, Surge?
oh yes. Oh yeah. That helps us a lot, really.
Saved a lot of money.
A lot of money, and there's a lot of headaches trying to go out to bid. Getting all these,
Yeah,
just trying to get suppliers.
yeah, streamlined.
She's done it 2 years in a row for the salt, which has been pretty good. This year we have a different type of salt. I got a salt that is $61 a ton, but it's pre-treated.
Yeah.
Like a magnesium. I don't know if you guys have seen it around town, but it's like a greenish, it looks green almost. So it has like a dye in it, so you know you put it down, so you can see where you've gone, and it really works well. Once that temperature turns like 30 degrees, it just activates, it melts the snow.
And it's environmental.
Oh yeah, same stuff that I've been putting down, it's just now it's added into the salt ball.
Is there any questions? No?
Straightforward.
Yep, you do a great job.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Next, we'll call up Lee, Parker, the library.
That was easy.
How you doing? Very good.
Hello. I know this is your first time seeing the budget. For those of you who are new, my name is Lee Parker. I'm the director of the Norton Public Library. This is Brian Stoltz. He's the president of our board of trustees. So, as requested, this is a level service budget. I have a handout here which gives you some of the highlights of our last fiscal year. 91,610 items borrowed. 68,604 visitors to the physical library, many thousands more to our virtual 24/7 branch, approximately 100,000 visits to our website alone. Our registered borrowers are now 10,781, 674 new cardholders in 2017. We held 321 lifelong learning classes or programs with 7,506 people attending them. And we received $26,824 in donations and grants. And our community room was used 918 times last year, up from 824 the year before. So our friends, our trust, and the many generous donors are essential contributors to an indispensable community resource. They support ongoing upkeep of the library facility and grounds, as well as the library's extensive services, a well-balanced collection of physical and digital materials for all ages, as well as cultural programs and lifelong educational opportunities, all of which enrich the lives of Norton residents. So we included $3,000 for computers in order to update 6 computers, 1 staff and 5 public. We have 25 computers in the library, most of which are for public. We did, as an update, we did just have 3 computers fail. 2 CERT computers were replaced. The board just approved them at the last board meeting to be replaced, and my children's librarian's computer just died. It says no operating system, and we have not been able to fix that, so we're going to have to get that one too, out of our own budget. But we are only requesting $23,712 from the town for materials in this budget, although we have to spend $59,296 to meet the materials requirement. And let's see, most of the stuff is pretty self-explanatory. I added a summer intern. This was the required payroll. And I know you usually ask, Bob Berg is not here, but you usually ask for the supplemental budget, so here you go. So for those of you who don't know, the library is a town-owned building and it's a town department, but the library is also a 501c3 and has to raise money to pay for everything from toilet paper to trash disposal, light bulbs to electricity, office supplies to copier contracts, postage to programs, fuel to facilities and grounds maintenance, as well as materials such as books, movies, music, downloadable media, and museum passes. And it also pays for independent annual financial audit. But the income sources in the supplemental budget are not there for next year because they're not guaranteed. So, for instance, our fines are down already this year because we installed a media drop, which is what people wanted so they'd have more access. But obviously that means there's fewer amounts in fines. But that's okay, we're not in business to make money. We should be there for the public. But that means our fines are down. And also we eliminated tutoring fees. We used to charge a $5 fee to tutor in the library, and we eliminated that. So that was another, I want to probably say 700 last year.
It adds up over time.
But we eliminated that. So we're trying to do things to make the library as accessible as possible, even though we're still only open 40 hours a week with all the 24/7 services, having the media drop and all these things. We're doing the best that we can. So the other reason that the income is lower is we are going to have to be closed to replace the HVAC, and during that time we will be collecting fines, printing any of those costs, and the Friends had to kind of put off several of their large fundraisers. They usually do a spring book sale, which they've canceled, and the basket wrappers. They are still doing a plant and bake sale though.
Mike?
For the income for 2018 was zero. I mean, obviously you've done something. Are you in line, say?
Well, that's what I'm saying. The things that I'm talking about are low, like the fines are down.
I mean, like the Balfour Fund.
Yeah,
So-
we plan on withdrawing from that what the program allows us to draw out that we'll need. But what she's explaining is, say we get $60,000 from the Balfour from the investments that we have. The Friends give us a lot of money, and they're going to be we're going to be closed for 6 to 8 weeks for the library. The HVA system has to be completely redone, and you can't have the public in there while they're working on it. So any of the funds, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 that come from the Friends at that time of the period will be coming out of next year's supplemental budget.
The supplemental funds have been substantially depleted over the past half a dozen years because of the increased contribution from the trust for the materials, also increasing costs and like water, different things. And also we've had to spend so much money to make these repairs. We spent since 2010 $115,000 just on the HVAC system. Very
For just
expensive
repairs.
bandages. Very expensive bandages. So the trust was created to serve the library in perpetuity and has served the library in town extremely well. Since 1998, the library has drawn down $684,842, and The Balfour funds that were being held by the town, the building fund for the eventual second floor, have now been depleted for repairs. It's been, it's been almost 30 years. It was $500,000, but the largest expense was the HVAC. But we continue to keep the library open with these very costly repairs, but every year we do, okay, we get it through one more winter, one more summer. And any future HVAC issues or any other issues have to come from the supplemental funds.
Yeah, Tom?
I noticed your salaries. I just looked at the first two. It would be nice if you gave us a total of all your salaries for 2018 and opposite what you're asking for this year. I know you give it to us across the board, but I noticed the first item is 6% increase. The second item was 8% increase. So if I go from 75,523
Okay, so
81,160.
I'm looking at this sheet. Do you have this sheet?
I have this sheet.
Okay, so this sheet is the breakdown that it's easier to see. It gives you the year before.
Yeah, well, this gives you the year before too.
And then, so we have a new youth services librarian.
Okay, let me start with the first item.
Okay,
75,523.
that was the salaries committee.
Was last year's rate. Just bear with me. Okay? This year's, your request this year is 80,116. That's a 6% increase. Drop down to the next person, who's the assistant director. Okay? Last year her salary was 58,47. This year it's 54,782, or 7.7% increase. My question is does that carry down all the way through?
No.
I only did two.
No.
But I'll bet if I randomly, I did a statistical sample of two. Okay,
No, it's
you're
not.
telling me the rest of them are much lower. That's a statistical anomaly. I picked the first two that were the highest, right?
The two of the high, you picked the two highest
Okay.
ones, and then the other ones are 3 to 4, sometimes a little less than that, depending
It
on
was-
what their rate was.
The increases were as directed by the town manager, was steps plus 2%. And the salaries committee met and gave me these salaries.
Okay, so what you're telling me that the town manager agreed with the 6%, 7%, 3%, 4%, 5% on the town contracts were all set up for 3%?
Well, I think it was it 3% plus steps?
It was steps plus 2%.
Steps.
Yeah.
It was steps, and that's what this is. So there's one person, maybe one or two people that have reached their final step, so they just have the 2%.
They got red line.
2%.
Your red line.
Yeah,
If you reach the
right.
top of it.
One of the reasons that the assistant director went from 50 to 54 is her responsibilities increased threefold. Over the course of many years, we've been adding more responsibility to her.
I have the
With
job
minimal
description.
benefits.
The
So
job
we
description
tried
has been
to
updated, and Brian has
give her a
that.
little more than, tried to make up for some of that. Believe it or not, there was an offer for her to move to a different town, and she chose to stay here because she likes
Substantially
the
less
town.
money here.
But she's staying here for less money. And this would have been closer to home I think it was a head librarian, right?
Yeah, but I don't know if she wanted that public.
But still, she's staying here because she likes the place, and we want her to stay.
All right.
If you look, the other ones are,
Well, I looked at your total budget's
Yeah.
only 3% over what it was.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not questioning that, I just questioned the big chunks in the first two items.
Yeah.
Yes, Mike?
That's all.
General question, you said borrowed items for 91,610. Is that more than, is it increasing? Is that the trend, or is it less?
a lot of libraries their circulation is decreasing. Ours is still going up a little bit. And that it may change this year if we have to close them. And some of it is the 24/7, so people are loving. We have a new product called Hoopla. I actually had teachers in the library telling me how much the students are loving it because they can access, they'll have Chromebooks now at the Yale, I guess. So they can access Hoopla and they can listen to the audiobooks that they want. They're doing I Survived. They were doing some certain series, and they can do the audiobooks, they can do books, they can do streaming TV and streaming movies, and so there's a lot of new services that they can do from anywhere, and that is all part of it too.
Yep. Peter?
Yes. I have a question about Steps. I keep hearing steps a lot. Anybody tell me what a step is?
The steps were something that the salaries committee met with Mike, I don't know what year it was, and they come up with steps for the different positions, and they were like 2%, 3%, 4%. They were,
No, but what's a step? How do you get a step? Is it like a time and service for a step? Like each time and service, is that a step?
It's time and
What-
service.
How do I
Time
get a
and-
step?
yeah, time and service.
Time and
So
service.
you can see that some
It's
of
a
them,
union positions, correct? Aren't they?
It is not a union
No?
position.
No?
No.
It's mostly a time and service, is generally what it is.
Yeah, and,
Okay.
you know.
The general question-
Also, they're, I guess it's just, you know, how they react and what kind of an employee they are too, that comes into play.
Okay. So that someone might
And I
have
have
the
a
review,
contract.
someone might have the review and say, we're going to give you 2 steps this year because you,
no,
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 no.
no, 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 no.
Some of them,
No.
you know, if they're not doing really well, you might say, we're not going to give you a step. I mean, that could come into play also. But, you know, they deal with the public and they're doing a really good job, so over a certain amount of years, they're getting another step, one step up.
okay, so it's a step in grade kind of thing, a step in their, whatever their
Yeah.
title is. They might start out at step 0 because they just got hired there or whatever, and then
Mhm.
after a year or 2 or whatever years, they get
Right.
a quote-unquote step.
Yeah.
Okay, to grade level, I would guess. you think of.
And I know you don't like to compare to other towns, but it may not seem it, but trust me, these salaries are,
Oh, I'm not,
Oh,
I'm
lot less
not
than-
questioning the salary, I was just
We all know that. Yeah.
understanding what the step was.
Oh, I mean, it's-
it's always the same, right?
And your presentation is very thorough.
Thank you.
It's obvious you work hard and you show results from
We try.
Paul?
Yeah, I'm just a little concerned with the supplemental side of it. You mentioned, and I understand why you can't show income because it isn't there yet. But your discussion of income is not highly encouraging, and yet I noticed that your budget for 18 and then again for 19, coming out of the supplemental, has gone up quite a bit.
Yeah.
How long can we keep this up? I mean, I'm worried about this in terms of the long run. Maybe you can cover it now, but as you said, we've been drawing down on some of these things for a long time. The second floor has already been
Yeah.
gone for other
Right.
things.
Yeah, if they spread it out, you know, they could take a little bit more down from the endowment. I mean, you all know that we have the formula and what the,
Well, I'm just concerned about the long range for the future. You're budgeting on these three years that you show here. It's going up considerably, and yet your brief discussion of the income side of it was not particularly encouraging. And so I'm worried about what happens if this isn't possible.
Yeah.
Where are we on this? Can we confidently expect that we can go up supplementally this way and keep going up that way?
not
Or-
forever, no, because if the more you draw down from the endowment, then the lower the
I know that,
the
that's
amount.
what I'm worried about.
But,
There's an anomaly actually in 2019. So if you look at the third item, which is building repairs at $36,000,
Yeah,
we're
Yeah.
getting quotes right now to put in LED lights at with the prorated discounts that are available right now. Our return on investment is about 3 years. So we're willing to try to influence and get that money in there, pay for that, to change all the lights inside and outside to LEDs. So we can, over 3 years, we reduce our electric bill and try to recoup that money.
and that's the largest difference.
So that's an
between-
anomaly for
Yeah.
2019.
Yep,
okay.
That's a good program. Aaron?
So that's a $30,000 difference between 2018
Yes.
and 2019.
yes,
And the difference, removing that,
Yes.
if you just consider that between 2018 and 2019, take $30,000 off of 166, 150, 136, 150,
There's
you're
minimum.
$1,050 more than last year.
Right.
and our friends they're going to do, even though we're losing the spring basket raffles, they're going to do a fundraiser at Home Plate with baskets, and they're going to do something over the summer. We'll make up the difference somehow, we hope.
Yeah.
I was more concerned with the fact that, and
Yes.
you're right, in terms of that one item. But there was a big jump this year from a 111 to 135.
Right. Well, we also paid for an engineer to come in, heating and ventilation engineer to come in. He did an as-built at the library, and he came up with the plans for the new system. So we're not just hiring a contractor to put a new system in. We hired an engineer to design a system who will inspect it to make sure it's built correctly.
My quibble with this only is that in every year there's something like this. It may not be the same thing, but, well, it's up this year because it's this one-time special thing. Well, the next year,
There's always something special coming up.
there's some other special thing
Right.
that if there's a crisis. I mean, we see this, not just with this department, but a lot of them, year after year.
Right.
And so I'm worried about things, well, if we just got this year and we got this next year and then it'll all smooth out. It doesn't work that way. In my years of experience here, it just doesn't work that way. And I worry about thinking that it will.
We worry about that all the time with the building is 30 years old.
I know.
You get to that,
Been around
that
for a
point
while.
when it, and with public service and the amount of volume of people you see in there, things break
Very
and,
true.
you have to react to them as quickly as possible to make them safe for the public.
But we're lucky we have a lot of amazing volunteers. Brian, even as the president of the board, he's still in there. He installed the media drop, made sure that it couldn't be pulled out. And, they do so much for the library and the park. So that saves us money. We're very
We do what we
fortunate.
can without, the amount of money we have. There are certain things we're not allowed to do as a public building, but we try to do some of the stuff.
Okay. Great. Any other questions, comments?
No? Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
Good luck. Okay, moving on. Charlene, yes, for communications, data processing.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi, Charlene.
I'd like to start with the 155, since that's the first one on the list. Anybody have any questions? It's pretty straightforward.
Yep.
It stays pretty stable because mostly everything's under contract. The real increases this year were in Zobrio, which is the cash management, and fund accounting and fundware. They had an increase in their contract for the year.
Yeah.
And we also added seamless docs to the town hall, which will allow us to turn a lot of our forms that we use now manually into fillable documents, and it interfaces with the town hall website. So the public will have access to it. We can turn our forms over and they'll be able to just do it online and download it. So it should save us a lot of time and a lot of paper.
Any questions in regards to 155 data processing?
Not about the budget. Didn't we talk about modernizing the name of this from data processing to something else? I don't know if it came up once in the past.
Is it IT?
I don't know, but it had come out like data processing. That doesn't really, mean anything.
They've had that there they've had that since before I got here, and I was like, okay,
Yeah.
that's what they call it. Should be like a technology-oriented title.
Yeah, well, just a comment, really. I just thought it was
We'll
something
mention that tonight.
not important.
Yeah.
I thought it was something that we could run up before. Okay.
All right? All right, Charlene. Any other questions on 155?
All set? We can move on to 290, which is communications. I know you haven't had a lot of time to look at it, but if anybody has any questions, you'll notice there's a new line item.
EMRCC.
There's our increase.
That's your whole budget.
Without that, my request for this year would be less than last.
Yeah. I mean, what is it?
That is the assessment to the regional center. 2019 is the first year they're going to ask for assessment for the four towns.
Yeah, for Mansfield, Foxborough and Easton, I think, isn't it?
I really don't have a lot of explanation for it. All I know is
That's correct, and one of the things they've done already, they do have an executive director that they brought on board who was top-notch, and that's part of the reasoning for this.
Yeah.
They're trying to move forward to it. It's actually on a fast track, so it's good news.
Okay.
Now we have answers. I'd like to know, is this going to go the same way that the regional veterans agent went, where in the end we wound up being the only town left standing? Every other town bailed,
Yeah.
because they're much smarter than us.
Yeah. From what I understand,
What is this assessment?
this is the assessment is split equally 4 ways.
Okay, but what's...
So that total assessment for the
What are
4
we
towns
being
is
assessed for?
$204,000.
What is the assessment for? What's the...
I do not have a breakdown of the assessment. It's supposed to be coming, I just don't have it yet. I was just informed of this like 4 days ago to add this line to my budget because this was going to be the first assessment. I believe there's also a small assessment that's going to come out of the FY18 budget that exists now, but it's not supposed to be anywhere near this, but I'm going to have to find out what that is and come up with that too. So, but as you can see, if you take that out,
Yeah.
I'm less, my entire budget request for this year would only be $745,000,
All of our...
which is still less than last year.
But all of our people go with the system, right? I don't understand what the assessment's for. Are we supplying the people to this new regional 911 or whatever they're gonna call it?
Maybe fire chief can...
Yeah, because
I'd like to
I
understand.
don't have a lot of information on the structure of the assessment. I can't even tell you if it's going to be maintained at that level, like in the following years. Either chief may know, because they've been in on this much more than me.
So as I understand, you'll hear enough from me later, right?
He'll give you his version, the other chief will give you his version, and we'll meet in the middle.
In September, the region received a grant for $1.5 million to start this project. Part of the funding was for an executive director, which has been hired. He was a deputy director in Chelsea. He started in November. So he's working on building specs, regionalizing CAD systems, a whole plethora of responsibilities, looking at staffing. What is he going to do for staffing? We had a meeting on Monday where it was just a very brief meeting, just trying to discuss some of these. The plan is to try to get in for July of 2019. That is the plan. So there'll be another round of grants this year that the rec will apply for. Will everybody go? Will all our employees go? That's a question we don't know, because the thought is that it's going to be, the communication center will be dissolved, and then the rec will go through a hiring process to hire dispatchers. So when we're at about 40 dispatchers between the 4 towns, it's going to come down to probably 30 or possibly even less. So there is, we have looked at Mansfield, the police station, but due to costs, we're now looking at High Rock in Foxborough, which if you go, the only way you can get there is by going Route 1, unless you hike through Foxborough State Park. You go Route 1, you take High Rock Road. It's a fortified, it's like the Mima bunker, a fortified location with a huge AT&T tower. AT&T used to own this. It was like a governmental public safety type of building that they put at a whole bunch of different locations up and down the East Coast and even going out west. And then basically they made when fiber optics was coming in, they didn't choose fiber optics. And fiber optics took control, and they basically were left with a building that really had no value to them. So they turned it over to American Tower, and now American Tower wants to give it to the district for $0. which is a huge, huge benefit, where we don't have to put money into Mansfield, or I should say the district doesn't have to put money into redoing Mansfield, and the state has been on board, the state likes the location. You know, I was a little, I'll be honest with you, when I first heard about it, I wasn't impressed by it, but I did meet with the director today, and I don't want to say he sold me on it, but it's a great, you know, the building itself has room for growth. The tower is an excellent location for communications expansion. You know, one of the other things he's doing is discussing communications and how we're going to work with our radios and things like that. So it's really, it's quite an overwhelming position, but I think this director he has what it takes for it. I think it's very impressive.
Peter?
So, I've heard about this a little bit. So, this regional, so we pay N number of dollars for our current dispatch kind of system. We know we pay that every year for it. We have a certain amount to pay for it. And now it's going to go regional. So, do we expect to pay N dollars less than what we pay now, based on the assessment we're going to receive? In other words, I guess what I'm getting at is, we have our dispatch and all the support for that. It costs so much dollars. Now you're going to have regional, and you've hired an executive director that $50,000 would be tagged for now, which means to me he's making between 1 and 2, because that's the first chunk we get billed at. So what kind of overhead is going to be in this regional plus that? See what I'm getting at? It's like
There's going to be a transition period, because right now they're working on the developmental grant,
Right.
which restricts very much what they can use that money for. Once the regional entity becomes real and is functional, their grant will cover much more than it does now, because they'll be off the developmental grant and into the full regular grant.
I guess my question is when we look back at the VA, how it was all this great thing, we'll be able to combine it to VA. Next thing you know, we're being assessed more than we actually stuck in for our own VA. So it's costing us more as a town. So I like the idea. I'm not pushing it down, but has there been some good analysis on, for our town, what's the cost savings going to be or expected to be, for this regional thing? It sounds great, but it's going to cost us more.
The Board of Selectmen, there was a cost savings to the town.
Was it? Okay.
But this year being the transition year, you're not going to see it, because
Okay.
we're actually paying dual. We're paying a portion to the regional, and I'm still having to keep my center. Oh, God.
One of the other things, one of the other things is that right now on the individual assessment fees that we get a certain amount from 911, they're forcing the other direction, where they're going to lessen what the individual communications are going to get around the state, because they want everybody to drive towards this regional kind of a setup. So they're going to ramp up the money they're saving by taking it away from the current Norton. They're going to be giving it to these regional entities once they get all up on board. So there was definitely a savings in the original presentations. My thought, and I was the one who spilled the beans at a FinCom meeting a few years back, before it was actually a real public knowledge thing that we were working on, that we've been working on behind the scenes for a couple of years, that it won't cost you any more. It should be a far superior product. If you figure that you're going to have one of Charlene instead of 4 Charlenes, basically, in this hierarchy and stuff, that you start looking at the savings of things like that, really. I mean, that's, put it bluntly, that's part of the cost savings that you've taken away. It's,
But we have a lot of say as a town, Charlene, and where she spends her money. We don't have any say, really, in an assessment.
Well, one of the big things is, like Chief Clark just said, we got the 1.3, 1.5 or something right in that area for this first out of the gate monies and stuff. The South Shore Rec in Situate is up to like 7 million in infrastructure alone improvements, from fiber optics between all the stations, things that we as a town would probably never be able to afford to do when your 911 is able to fund those projects. Our repeaters are an issue potentially that we've been band-aiding together to way past their shelf life, things like that the 911 is looking at doing all this equipment upgrade for us, so we can be part of all these grants. So there's huge savings even on the infrastructure side, never mind just the operational side and stuff.
Is it possible for the committee here to get some type of copy of Yeah, savings, there has to be the savings.
Is it, Bob?
Come on up.
Why not?
Let's have
Everybody.
The Board of Selectmen, when we looked at this proposal, and I think we brought it before you guys, there was a tremendous cost savings to the town. We get the best deal of all, just so you know that. The savings to the town of Norton was by far more than the other three communities that are involved. But what really sold us was the grant money, the regionalization, which the state is encouraging and trying to force this down on everybody, the savings that we can get from that. But more importantly, I think even now, we've got dispatchers that are working for us part-time, they're working for other towns part-time. Because they're anticipating this all going to have to, from a 40 to 30 dispatchers will have to be merged together. But the main reason the Board of Selectmen supported this was the cost savings, and I forget how much it was.
That's what I was
can tell
looking
you,
for.
it's more than 100,000.
Okay.
I know it was hundreds of thousands of dollars the town was going to save, but I really don't know how much the dollar amount was. But it was enough that we realized that we're going to have the best equipment, the best trained personnel. We have more personnel than we possibly could have now. And after everything is said and done, we're going to pay less. So with that, we went for it. And I think in the future, we'll be pleased, but I can't answer your question. The number's out there in the initial presentation, but we can get that for you.
That's what I'd like to see, just what the numbers,
Yep, Tom.
Because, Bob, I heard the same story when we regionalized with the veterans agent. We were going to save a fortune. And the first thing that came out of the box is, we got a veterans agent. Oh, but by the way, he can't be there all the time, so we have to hire a secretary. So now we have one person, now we have two people. Before we got done, we were paying more to the regional than we're paying right now to our veterans agent. And in retrospect, all the other towns realized that long before we did. We're sitting here like this, and all the other towns are bailed out. Now, is this type of situation, have we really vetted it to the point where in 2019, if I'm still here, being as old as I am, you're not going to come before me and say, well, we were close, but, it's going to cost us a little
I think
more.
what's different about this is if, let's say Norton decides we have to notify the other communities that we're going to pull out, I think we have to give them a 1-year grace period. If we do that, we got to come up with the money to put in all the new infrastructure, come up to date on all the equipment. There's going to be, you're going to be kind of caught between a rock and a hard
I
place.
understand
I think that's what you're saying. But
I don't know
and I know where you're coming from. I think you and I can agree that veterans agent position was very controversial. This is a bit different, in my opinion. It's not exactly the same.
I hope so.
Me too. But I think you're going to find out that this is going to be a much better position. We're going to be in a much better position. The only thing I'm kind of disappointed about is that I was kind of hoping it would come to Norton,
Yeah.
but it didn't. But we didn't have the facilities or the ability to handle it. But Mansfield was a Band-Aid. It's the first I've heard about Foxborough. Tonight was the first time I've heard into another possibility of another building, which sounds like it probably could be better anyway. But I think overall, if we decide, the town of Norton decides to pull out in a year, we have to give a 1-year notice to pull out of it. I'm hoping actually that more communities will get involved, not pull out, but maybe Rehoboth will come forward and say, you know what, this sounds like a good deal, maybe we can get involved in it too. And the more the communities get involved, the less the cost will be for everybody. And I think, in the long run, hopefully we're going to be able to absorb more of these costs.
So just one quick question. Do they manage like the ambulance receipts and is that
Everything.
Everything.
I think one of the differences, and I can't speak to the veterans agent because I don't know the specifics about it, but you have to understand that the state is pushing for the regionalization. The reason they're doing that is they're trying to consolidate all these PSAPs that every single community has. So they're throwing money at grants for people to consolidate. There's towns monthly are talking with other towns to consolidate at this point in time. There's what's called McCommon. What is it? What's the one in Rentham, Norfolk, Franklin,
Right.
Plainville?
Yeah, I'm not sure of the official name of it, but yeah.
They're all in the process of doing this right now. There's actually Duxbury holds a rec with Plimpton and I believe Hanson, and even Rochester is going to go over to that. And they're talking with Plymouth about absorbing all those communities. So I think it's, this is one of those things that, it's change. Nobody likes change. I think Charlene could speak. The dispatchers don't want to do the change, but it's just a changing environment. You know, we're talking about texting 911 nowadays, it's not just phone calls. We're talking about EMD, talking about making sure that there's quality control, that people are doing what they need to be doing. And, you know, we have, how many dispatchers do we have total? 9?
9.
9, and we have 1 Charlene. Where this is going to have 4 dispatchers plus a supervisor plus a director. So there'll be a supervisor on every shift. There'll be somebody to do the quality control on every shift. So,
And unfortunately, right now, the state is pushing, and people have choice to create the regional that they want. It will come a time when there is no choice.
So
You will be told what to
So
do
we're
and
either
where
gonna
to go.
drive the bus or get run over by it and have to, you know, be on the show. But one of the good news is that they've got 3 or 4 centers out there, and we know what their problems were when they came up and got up and going. 911 wants us to be one of the more, if you will, the gold standard kind of a place. We've got a great executive director. So between that, I think we're going to be full steam ahead and have one of the most successful in the Rex in the area and stuff, because we know the problems that Rex. So I'm not sure what happened with Veterans Day, but
I'm just saying, I hope so.
Steve?
yeah.
I haven't seen the new proposed building, but from what I've been told, it is perfect for a communications center. Compared to the old police station, which was going to require a lot of modification because it needed to be turned from a police station into a communications center, which is a totally different thing. This new building that they are anticipating was built for a communications center. So,
And I think we were concerned about the trying the Board of Selectmen because we didn't want the state to come back 2 years from now and say, well, you had a chance to join this one, but now you're going to be with, I mean, nothing against Attleboro and Taunton, but I don't want to be part of a city process. I don't want to be a town tagged up with a city. And the other part of it I really enjoyed was, if you pick up your cell phone right now and dial 911, you get the state police somewhere. You don't get Norton. And this new facility supposedly is going to be able to, if we dial 911 in Norton, they know it's coming from Norton. And that right there will save minutes, it's not, you know, in case of
it'll
emergency.
save a whole transfer.
So that is very important to ourselves.
Great.
So
Steve?
conceptually, if everything goes up and running, everything's great, you could be eliminating 750,000 of this budget.
But you
Other than the
lose, you
assessment.
will lose all the payroll, any personnel that's on there
Yeah.
will be gone.
Okay.
All the benefits.
And all the benefits that go along with it,
Yeah.
and pretty much all the expense budget, other than whatever the assessment is, because there won't be a department to have to run. So anything that would normally be in that budget that might be like a little leftover could probably be moved into data processing. Because for a while, there's going to need to be some upgrades that happen here to be able to accommodate the ability to interface properly with the new entity. Because we're going to need new CAD systems and things of that nature. Our portion of it, that will have to interface with what is in the new regional.
Aaron?
When this is implemented, we can expect this SCM or ECC, SEMRAC, Camelgo SEMRAC?
Oh, SEMRAC, Southeastern Massachusetts Regional Emergency Communications Center.
So right
All
now,
full.
right now for 2019, we're looking at $51,000 for that, but I can assume that once we're fully implemented with that, that number will go up to cover our share of what we're participating in with these 3 other towns.
I don't know how they're going to figure out what the annual portion's going to be. I mean, that is
But
going
at the end of the day,
to...
The answer is yes.
We're not gonna save $750,000.
No.
By population.
So if, to Peter's point, if we can just get what the board, if we can just get what the expected savings were from your meeting, Bob, so that we know what we expected going in, and
And I
something
think
to
that
look back at
expected
and
was from
find out if
actual
we
run.
did what we expected.
So we can expect then, we're all set, is the cost benefit of how the decision that was made to move forward with this and the paperwork, and then what this $51,000 assessment is, how they determine what it was.
Right.
Okay. We can expect
The
that.
breakdown.
You know, one thing that's not on there is the capital costs. We need 3 new repeaters yesterday at about $18,000 a repeater.
Yeah. And they're 18 years
At some point
old.
in time, if we are going to need to replace those. I actually mentioned it at the Capitol this year, that we should set some money aside, because if they go tonight, we're going to need to replace them tomorrow. You know, our hope is that the rec will take care of that. And move up some radios and everything.
Yep.
The key is going to be timing. The rec has to exist before we can get
Right.
the money from state in a grant to be able to cover this. If the rec doesn't exist and I lose those repeaters tomorrow, we're out of luck.
Yep.
Chief Clark, just for my own edification, what is a repeater?
Ah.
It transmits.
It transfers. If I push the button and talk to you on the radio, it will go to a tower. It will go to the closest tower wherever it needs to get routed to. We have one on the water tower on Cottage Street. We have one on what we affectionately call the tree down behind Red Mill Village. That thing that sticks up that looks like it's from California.
I got it.
That's where our repeater site is.
So it's something that
Yeah, it
catches
actually,
the signal and sends it back along?
Yes. So that
Gotcha.
when we talk from dispatch and we have to talk to somebody way down the other end of town, like
Your radio can't do it.
Gotcha.
extended stay,
I gotcha.
if there wasn't a repeater, it would just
Extender,
not.
signal extender.
Yeah. Sorry, we just use these terms and don't realize that
Thank
you all don't know what we're talking about. Oh, he found it.
We have the minutes, thanks for Wayne Victor, we have the minutes of the Board of Selectmen's meeting, and it said that the town obviously wants to save money, but already looking at the more professional, better operation and just upgraded technology. In the future, the technology cost of the town will be about $1 million, and now the technology expense will be shared by other towns. So the town of Norton, the budgetary savings are in the $400,000 range.
Annually?
Savings. From $1 million?
Yeah. We were blown away by it. And they save substantially more than the other towns because they already have a station officer position in town where the town do not have it. The other towns will have the need to put someone else in that position. And the savings are looked at, people will see $437,000. And the other town range from $53,000 to $166,000 because of the station officer.
We have a front desk officer. Nobody else does. They all use their dispatch as their front desk officer.
But I think
So when that position's vacated, they're going to have to establish either a civilian person or a sworn desk officer to do that.
I think the key point is the grants. They have to continue, otherwise.
Yeah, right now, we're fortunate, we still have the grant.
Yeah.
We're still getting the grant. But
But-
next year, the state
Right.
could decide no more grants to individual dispatches.
Yeah, Peter.
So, one more thing, so when we go to this regional, will we lose some of the money we receive for being, with the emergency center, something for an area communication emergencies, preparedness, something, do we get money for that? Are we, like, just talking out of my butt here? Are we?
I didn't get the whole question.
So we have all the operators and stuff, and in the last couple of years, we built up that because we were some type of southeastern regional emergency.
Oh, the Bristol County.
Bristol
We're
County
Talking about
Community
Bristol
Dispatch.
County.
Yeah, no, that's actually gonna be transferred to the rec as well, because.
So we would lose that money, whatever money we get.
No, we don't get any money
We
for
don't get any for that?
We get no money for Bristol County Control. Zero.
Well, we get headaches.
Why don't we get money for it?
Governor King assigned that to Norton way back when, and,
You know, so the,
seriously, the King and I.
my dispatchers are actually doing Norton Dispatch and County Dispatch.
That will tie
They're
into the
doing-
911 giving of the money, though. That's one of the things that will probably tie into that we are a regional county dispatch as well. So that's going to help with some of the, like, right now we get Chief Clarkson and the Homeland Security Council, and they're doing upgrades for some of the towers, like in Cobra, I guess, Brian and stuff. So there are things that are being done to that would have cost us money somehow as an assessment, maybe for us to pay into it, that we're not because of it. So, so it's,
But basically, in very rough form, when the rec begins to exist, the only thing left will be the assessment, whatever that's determined at, and everything else in that 290 budget will be gone, because there'll be nobody left.
Steve?
Just a quick change of pace from rec. I'm just looking at the overtime number, and I don't remember the assumption. So we budgeted last year 80,000, which is a drop of about 20,000 for overtime. It looks like we're spending already at 1231, 98% of that. What did materialize that we...
The problem this year was I have lost 2 dispatchers. One was a lateral transfer and the other left to go to work for the court. So when those 2 left, until we can get replacements trained, which takes months, that's overtime, filling those positions. And both positions that are empty now happen to be a midnight position, so that's at top rate.
So the budgeted positions that are here, there's 9 listed. Does that mean there's 11 budgeted positions or 9?
There are 9
7 with 2 open.
budgeted positions. My full staffing is 9. Right now, I'm working with 7.
7 with 2 open. So then...
So I started off this year, FY18, with 9. I had full staffing until August? Was it August or October? August, when I lost one to a lateral transfer, and then another left to go to the court in Attleboro to work, which was the job she previously held before she came here to dispatch.
So the salary numbers that are in here are reflective. I guess if you bring someone in new, is there not a significant drop bringing somebody new at a lower step before you bring them?
Correct. That's why you notice the drop in total budget for next year, because those 2 people get replaced with a initial step dispatcher. The one that I lost was a top step dispatcher. So she had top pay, top longevity, top benefits, top everything. And the other one I lost was a 7-year dispatcher, so she was at step 3. So those 2 positions are being replaced with a step 1 dispatcher, which has no vacation, no longevity, basic holidays, and lowest pay rate.
So the 2 names that are here, it's just that we're looking at the step
Those 2
1.
names that are new, those that you don't recognize, those are the 2 new people.
Oh, so you have hired somebody?
Yes, but they're in training right now,
Okay, so you are at 9
Yes.
positions?
right now. But they are not working independently,
Okay.
and they are getting paid at that lower rate. So they are actually using the leftover budgeted money for those 2 people that left. But we're still paying overtime because they can't work independently, so dispatchers are filling those 2 empty shifts.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And that's probably going to last another 2 months, and we should start leveling off after that.
Shelley, quick question. Last year, we transferred $30,000 from finance reserve for additional new equipment for communications. I
Yep.
see it listed here for $15,000 under the budget.
Which line?
The additional equipment, the last line item.
I'm sorry, I don't,
I guess, additional equipment.
yours probably looks a little different than mine.
When it jumped from 12,250 to 15,000?
Yeah. 15,000. Last year, we approved, transferred from the finance reserve, total of 30,000 for additional equipment. So I don't know if maybe that's from 18
That's
plus.
additional equipment.
Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe it's combined.
Yeah,
Just make it.
yeah,
Does that equal, yeah.
because we had some
Yeah, okay.
equipment issues that
So
we
it's
had to
18
take
in.
care of that weren't going to come out of the 155. So,
Okay, so it's 18 in.
yeah.
Any other
Anybody else have any
questions for Charlene?
questions?
No? Great.
Sorry about the 51, but can't be helped.
Thank you for helping us understand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. We bring up Chief Clark,
Thank you.
an encore.
Good evening again. So this year's budget basically is a level service budget. Everything in here is contractual, in particular regarding the personnel services. The expenses are really, I think they're even a little less than level funded. But I did want to give an overview. I sent a letter. I'm not sure if it came in your packets. So there are some rather dramatic increases, in particular in the salaries portion. There are 9 officers that have elected under their contract what's called salary augmentation. So they basically get an increase for a 3-year period of time of up to 9.5%, but they don't receive sick time buyback. So you're kind of paying the sick time buyback up front, if you will. So that's when you see that there's like a $200,000 increase in salaries. It's a huge area. There are 11 officers altogether that receive step increases. Step increases are by years of service and what people get for their years of service. So if somebody goes from in their 9th year and they go into their 10th year, there's a step. There's a step after 1 year, there's a step after 2 years, there's a step after 10 years, there's a step after 18 years. So those are the steps that we have in the police department. There's also 7 officers that receive longevity increases. So, like I said, this is a level service budget. It doesn't ask for anything. But last year when we put together a needs-based budget, basically for the override question, I did ask for 2 new positions. One was a second school resource officer, and another one was a problem-oriented police full-time officer. So I put this together on February 12th, and the tragic events of February 14th happened. I do think that it's time that we add a second school resource officer. And I'll tell you specifically that the officer that we have now does an outstanding job. He does great communication, but there's only one of them. There's 5 schools. The elementary schools are rarely, if ever, touched. There's a lot of work that goes into the high school level, where he's there more of a full-time basis. He has an office there. And a lot of the things he does is regarding safety concerns, planning, prevention, building security, individual security. There's a lot of issues with technology, sexting, texting, bullying, things like that come up that, we can't just take a blind eye to. It's really unfortunate that, a lot of things fall in the police department that aren't handled, anywhere else. We can talk about the opioid issue, we can talk about mental health, and this is just another area. A lot of things fall in the police department. So, there is a lot to it, and to add a second one would really, I think, be beneficial, and it would greatly enhance our ability in the schools. So I'll go, I don't anticipate to go through every single line item.
Quick question on that. Is that going to be funded 75-25? Is that?
Well, the schools have, I'm sure Lincoln can't talk about it, but we have discussed that type of arrangement with the schools, and they have been supportive of that. So the overall difference in personal services this year from last year is $240,000, and the expense side is actually a negative of $215. It just kind of worked out that way. So it does include the 75% and 25% that's found in the Schedule 19 of the budget that the schools share. The school share is actually like $74,039. So over to page 3. So the salaries is for 32 full-time police officers. That's what we're budgeted at this year. I will tell you that right now we're at 29. We just had a recent retirement. We had an officer that didn't graduate from the academy, and which really kind of set us back. And we have, in this year's budget, there was a new position to assist with license to carries, sex offender registry, things like that. So we're actually down 3 positions right now. We do have, there are three candidates that are going to be going to the State Police Academy, in on April 2nd, and they've been accepted, and they'll go there, but they won't get out till September 14th, and then these two of them are going to have to go through the field training officers program, so we probably won't see them on the road until November, I would say, beginning of November. I will say that, we have another officer who's going to be going out on maternity leave in June, so we're not going to see her for a few months after June. So it's, we take one step forward, two step back. So the overall increase for the salaries is $216,000. My salary is a contractual increase of $3,500. There is the overtime. The only issue with the overtime, there's no new hours. That's the same amount of hours that we did last year, but the average overtime went up basically $3 an hour. We'll go up $3 an hour. So there's an increase of $20,000 there, which I'll be honest with you, I'm very sure that Mike will cut at least around the first time around. So the longevity increase is an increase of over $100. Shift pay, so if a sergeant is off and there's no superior officer working, the most senior patrolman works that shift, gets paid a stipend, and there'll be a small increase in that. No increase in fringe benefits. There's actually a decrease in incentive pay due to the way the contract was reworded. There's no increase in injury and vacancy time. We've been doing pretty well with that. We did have an officer go out for a period of time this year due to a dog bite, but we've been pretty good with that. There's no increase in special police or the matron account. And like I said, the expenses are basically more or less level funded. There's no equipment increase. The vehicles, we're doing an amazing job between the highway department and Patrolman Chmielewski, who does our vehicles. I'll just bring it up real quick here to tell you where we are at this year. And I say that not to have you cut it, but just to give you an overview of where we're at. So right now, this year, we've actually only paid $7,000 out of that account. When I first took over 10 years ago, we were over $30,000 for that account. So only to pay 7, I'm sure we'll pay a little more than 10, but it's a pretty good decrease in money. The uniform clothing is a contractual increase of $1,525. No increase in professional services. There's a small increase in the telephone bill, but we do work with Verizon on a regular basis to adjust our bills, and they've been pretty good adjusting them. There is an increase of $560 in contractual services. That's mostly because of an increase in, I believe it's in the live scan fingerprint machine. No increase in office supplies, no increase in outside services. There's actually a decrease because everything being online, we're not buying as many books or anything for educational supplies. There's no increase in ammunition, no increase in investigations or travel. No increase in training. We did increase that last year by $2,000, and I think that's a good place to be. Educational assistance is a level funded, but I do want to tell you that of our department, 9 members have master's degrees, 11 have bachelor's degrees, 6 have associate's degrees, and there's actually only 7 officers that don't have a degree. Some of them are senior officers. So 79% of our department have at least an associate's degree or more. Next year, there's going to be 2 officers going back to school to receive a master's degree, 2 a bachelor's, 1 associate's and 2 a bachelor's degree. So there'll be 5 officers attending next year.
Mike?
Chief. Up until December 31st, only 1,700's come out of that? Is it the timing of the tuition payments?
Say that again? I'm sorry.
For educational assistance, it's only $1,700 as of 12/31, and it was budgeted. I mean, in all previous years, it seems to be, used a lot more.
Yeah, I believe, see, the kind of trick with this is that, an officer could decide in September that he wants to go back to school, and there's no obligation for him to tell ahead of time. There's no contractual obligation for them to tell me before July 1st or before February that they're going to go back to school. So when you're planning this, like last year, I don't know exactly who's going back, so we just level funded it. Next year, I believe we're going to eat up the $15,000. This year, no, we haven't. There's only one officer that's been creating a reimbursement request. But I will tell you that of that, I just read off 5 officers. There's at least 3 that are going to be requesting something before July 1st. So,
Chief, I want to go back to the salary augmentation in the collective bargaining. Is that something that's been around for a while, and then just all of a sudden it's just been...
So it's been, as far as I know, it's been around since about 2005, 2006. It was under a previous town manager that it was negotiated.
So,
but it's just been in the last, basically 4 years. 4 years ago was the first 2 officers started to take it. One officer actually retired on an injury, so he didn't benefit greatly from that. The other officer, I think, he got everything that he was entitled to.
Yeah.
But now we're seeing it more as we get more of a senior department that people are taking it. And
do you forecast that to be a trend next year in the following couple of years?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
And
so at the end of the budget, it kind of breaks down what if you have that, what the salary augmentation for FY19 is by officer.
Yeah.
So you can see the difference.
Okay. Steve, you had your hand.
So my question was staff augmentation buyback again. So what exactly is it? Are they getting paid for their accumulated sick time or whatever that they...
Well, not really.
They have to pay them at the end of their...
So it's a very lengthy article in the contract. It's about 2 pages. And there's all sorts of tricks and treats to it. If you have 180 days or more, you're eligible for 9.5% each year for 3 years. If you have 150 days or more, you're eligible for 6% for 3 years. If you have 135 days or more, you're eligible for 4.5%.
What do you mean by eligible for whatever? So you have, say it's take 180 days.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying you have 180 days of saved sick and vacation or whatever time in the bank, right?
Mm-hmm.
Benefits.
So if you have that, do you just get paid 9% more because you have that? Or do you like...
Exactly.
Oh, just because you have that, you get 9% more?
Mm-hmm. If that goes behind, if you have 180 days and you go out sick, you break your leg, and you take, 10, you take more than 10 days, or you take more than 1 day, then you're going to get the 6%.
6%.
If you go lower than 150, then you drop down to the 4.5%.
And that's above your pay. It's just by
Exactly.
you having that bank, you get paid more.
Right. So when they retire, you can retire at half of 360 days, which is 180 days. So you would get 180 days pay. They cannot get that when they request salary augmentation.
Okay, so they're getting the 7% or whatever percent now based on those days.
Right.
But those days don't count to ever buy them back. They
Can never buy them back.
Percentage now ahead of time.
Correct.
Because
We just had I'll give you an example. We just had a 35-year veteran retire that took salary augmentation. He did not get He did not get sick buyback.
you can get buyback, but he could use those days. You could use those days, like he could say he had 180 days, he could retire 180 days before. Would he get paid those 180 days now? But
No,
he wouldn't.
that's not how it
He
works.
loses them. Okay.
Well, yeah,
Right.
more or less.
Excellent. Okay.
Yes, Steve.
For the people that are doing this, the augmentation, when you go into retirement, do you see an increase?
It's not pensionable.
It's not mentioned.
No. Tarek, you said it's not pensionable.
Okay. And then my other question, just one, on the number of positions, so you said 32, is that just officers? 32 officer positions?
Yes, well, police, it would be, there'd be minus one full-time administrative assistant and a part-time records clerk.
Okay, so overall, what's listed here is
I'm sorry. So it does include, it is for 32 police officers, and then also includes one full-time administrative assistant and a part-time records clerk.
Okay.
So it is for 32 police officers.
And then right now, all those positions are full? Or
There's 3 that are unfilled.
Three
That are unfilled.
oh, okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
And they're going to the academy April 2nd, and then they'll graduate September 14th.
Peter?
So, sorry, another question. So, you said that one person went through the academy and didn't graduate.
Mhm.
Do we pay them while they're in the academy?
Yes, we do.
And if they don't graduate, what happens? Do they have to pay us back, or is it like?
They have to pay us back the recruit training fee that we pay, which is $3,000.
That's
We
it?
make them sign an agreement that they'll pay it.
Okay.
It's, I'll be honest with you, this has never happened before. It's
Okay.
really set us back.
Okay.
It's,
It's not common.
we've actually, it was well, we've changed the way we do things because of it.
Okay.
Good answer. Okay. Final questions? All set? Great.
All set?
Thank you, Chief.
All right, thank you.
All right. Next and last, we Chief Schleicher.
So when Michelle Brown told me that I was on for 7:45, I took my phone out and I says, FinCom 7:45 to 10:45. She got a chuckle out of that because I've been told that I tend to be long-winded, but, so.
Well, you get the big budget.
15 minutes, all right. So in the past, I've generally read my narratives into the record, just so people at home know. I don't know if you want me to do that or not, but just like the police budget, we were mandated to do a level service budget. So other than contractual increases, the budget doesn't contain any new personnel this year or anything at this point. So I do have a pretty extensive 7-item capital list, which I'm sure you'll go over at some point, most of which will be funded out of hopefully the ambulance fund, the defibrillators and things like that there. So without going into the details there, one of the ones I did put back in for, cancer is rampant in the fire service. So we were fortunate, we got a grant 2 years ago and got the gear extractors, a pair of them, the new dryers and all that, but we're still working on getting everybody their second set of turnout gear and stuff. So that's another capital item that I did put in for to continue on that program there. And it is that time again where we do have the replacement of a pumper schedule. It's 21 plus years old, our reserve pumper. So that's in there, and the pricing on that, we used to be able to get away with a 5-year, $99,000 lease. It's a 5-year, $125,000 lease now, and that's not going to get us a whole lot of equipment, unfortunately. The pricing, because of the environmental stuff, the DEF fluids and all that, as far as the emissions and stuff, is astronomical in a new truck. You know, it's a phenomenal amount of money. So, and I also put a placeholder in there again for the Weatherall Charlie Fire Station. So this past year, you were very generous, gave me $25,000 to redo a bathroom that still had a Fenway Park style floor-mounted urinal and all that stuff there. It was that old. It was from the 50s.
You sell it?
You know, so anyway, so I put a placeholder in there. I took had 125 last year. I dropped it to the 100 because you gave me 25. I would love if there's any chance of getting something, maybe to start working on the kitchen or something like that. But with the increase in manpower that we've been working on, it's getting near time for me to try to open up the satellite station. So.
Mike?
So a question.
Yeah.
How long can a building go vacant without it being a lost cause?
So that station is fully maintained. We had the problem, we learned our lesson with Station 4 down on Bay Road. We in our graces pretty much mothballed it, and it got overtaken by mold, mildew, rust, was structurally unsound and had to get torn down. So we do utilize it. I do keep it maintained with heat. We've slowly been doing stuff to it. We've redone it has a rubber roofing, but they went in and re-seamed it, redid all the molding around the edges and stuff so that there wasn't any kind of leaks in it. We had a leak in the bedroom, and if you remember, I ended up having to do some mold and mitigation there, and that got taken care of. So we are trying to maintain it. We do keep trucks in there because the trucks have water in them, so I need heated storage. That's probably one of the things I'm missing more than anything is heated storage, and that's one of the things we're missing without having another facility over in East Norton, because I could use just a heated shell over there just to put some of my rigs in, rather than having to drain the water out, and hopefully you get it all out of the valves, and it doesn't take very much for me to have a little bit of frost get into one of the valves and split it, and it's pricey to replace it and stuff. So I would love to have more heated shells.
That was what I was going to ask about, the east side of town, with all the residential housing up there and then the planned development up there. Is it, so you see that being, well, we don't have any.
We don't have anything over there right now.
So that's not going to be.
No, so my thought is if we could do something at the corner of Leonard Street in East Main, there's a field there that's tied into the condos or something. That's almost an ideal place for something like that. I know the town has some property, I think across the way behind the donut shop there and stuff too, but we really are in need of something on that side of the highway. And it's still a placeholder on my capital plan. It's just, the money's just not there to be throwing it out there and trying to do that right now. I'd love to be able to open it up when we have bad weather, like I do at Charlie. So Charlie does get manned during some of these blizzards and stuff like that. So we do utilize it, and we do try to maintain it for that reason. But yeah, no, that's one of the reasons why we're here instead of having Charlie open even now, is because in the old days, when Charlie was open, that was all farmland. And it's not now. We've got so much valuable real estate over on that side of town that it's a long ride from Charlie to there if I'm tied up. If the center station's tied up, that's a long response. So right now, my eggs are better off in the center station basket, if you will. So that's, it's an interesting point, because I would love to have at least a heated shell with the possibility of having an addition a few years later that could potentially put some manpower in there even. But even now, I'd love to have a heated shelter that I could possibly staff during bad weather and stuff. So,
Could you get a propane temp heat system?
we have no building over there in East Norton. So I need a heated shell of some sort.
Heat shell, oh, okay.
No, I'd love to get a heated shell there at some point. That's one of the things, I've talked to Mr. Units about it as well, and it's certainly something on the radar screen. I've had conversations with Mayor Kimball. We had talked even about, did I say that publicly again? We'd even talked about, because we have the Bay Road site still, it's sitting there vacant, but that's just so off the wall, it's a little bit too far removed almost to Taunton, that we'd almost try to do something like, on Plain Street or something, but really, right along 123 here is the best spot for that somewhere. I even mentioned the White Street Triangle, down there by that, the White Street Road doesn't really have a true purpose per se. Get rid of the road in that triangle, it'd almost be big enough to put a nice little satellite public safety building almost, because we'd want to have a police presence there as well even, but so it's on the radar screen. It really does need to be looked at some point, but I just don't think right now is the time with everything else going on to try to push another building project in town. Because the senior center, town hall is a hot button issue as it is that I'm not going to comment on.
Another day.
Yeah, So I do have my narrative. I'm not going to read it. I will tell you that I've spelled out the fact that we still have a problem with simultaneous calls, and they're actually going up. And part of the reason for that's on page 3. Part of the reason for that going up is the fact that we are indeed bringing the emergency room into your house. And it used to be that the guys would actually go in, do an assessment, go out and get the 1 or 2 pieces of equipment they need. They're mandated now by the regulations to bring everything in with them. And if they don't use it, you don't use it. So much more labor intensive for me to go to these, to have the department respond to these calls, but you're getting phenomenal treatment. You really are getting an emergency room in your house for a while. I'm told that the newest realm of regulations coming down is going to mandate that we actually work on you for a certain amount of time if you're a cardiac issue before we even try to load you up and transport you to get you stabilized before we move you even. So that's going to add even more time. So that's one of the reasons why the amount of calls has gone up that we have the doubles, because the guys are on scene long. And it's not that they're not doing their job, they're doing a better job. Community paramedicine, anyone read about it, hear about it? So that's very big out in Arizona, out in California. They're really working on it. Hospitals get gigged. If you get released today and you go back tomorrow, the readmittance, very pricey, very costly. So they're looking to try to come up with a way, and they're doing it elsewhere, where the fire department will almost be that stopgap. So we'll be going out and possibly treating you in your house instead of having you going back for something, as far as if you're just nervous about your medications and things. We do it now with diabetics. We go to someone's house who's having a diabetic emergency. We treat that patient. Once they come out of their emergency, a lot of times they'll sign off and not want to go. So we've invested time, money, supplies, and everything, and we can't bill for it. So with the new community paramedicine, which you'll hear more and more about over the next couple of years, you're going to find there'll be a billing mechanism. So it's hopefully something that will help us with our budget, not hurt our budget. But again, the details are being worked out on as far as that goes. But again, that's just so you'll know that that's coming. And it's, and then I did put in there response times again, because we're running out of one station. the response times are necessarily a little bit longer when you have a call in Charlie and Charlie Station's open. It's a much quicker response. I can't really help that until we get some more personnel and open up the satellite station or satellite stations if we're lucky.
Peter, do you have a question?
No, I'm gonna keep going.
So, no, that's fine. It's that, staffing levels on that page as well. Number 3 just talks about the fact that we have been, Charlie still is unmanned officially other than during severe weather events and stuff, but our work is very labor intensive. Chief Clark mentioned the opioid crisis. They do respond to it. We actually go and we're the ones who do the treatment in our can, try to bring them around. The recidivism with that's tough and everything. So it's taking a toll on the guys. It's a lot of people dying that will bring them back, and it's good news. But it's trying. It really is. So there's no new positions. I do on the first page, I believe, mention the fact that I did give Mr. Units a supplemental budget, requesting additional personnel to continue to work towards Charlie. We didn't do it last year with the override issue, but I'm also looking to try to increase the funding for that out of the ambulance account. So we're going to try to come up with a mechanism to fund the additional personnel if we do get the possible chance to have those. So everything else in the salary side is contractual. Some of the items went down a little. My incentive page went down because of some retirements. So some of the ones that were getting bigger incentives. Go ahead.
So, I'm looking at the salaries.
Which page are you?
I don't know, the one you can barely...
The one you can barely see? And I actually did some work to make that bigger this year. I'm legally blind, so it's...
So I must be getting close.
Okay, what do you got?
So there's actually one, I don't like to pick on mine,
Nope.
but there's actually one particular in there, it's Sean Simmons, and everybody says, contract says union, his says contract.
So he's the acting deputy chief this year. Deputy Chief Miles
Okay.
retired, so he's on his own separate contract. He's still in the union because he's only in an acting position,
Yep.
but he's on his own contract right now that he negotiates with Mr. Units as far as an MOU, if you will. So,
Got it.
same as me at the very top says contract. I'm in the same position, not in the union.
Okay,
Okay?
got it.
It'd be very difficult for the deputy chief to be in the union and still be part of the discipline process.
Yes, okay, I understand.
Okay.
Some other questions?
Okay. That was easy. Hope they're all that easy. That's one. I told Link I was going to allow 3 questions tonight. Do I get away with saying that or anything? Oh, no. All right. So as far as if you go to page 6, that's kind of a nice summary page, and it shows the comparative salaries and stuff. You'll find that the expenses I level funded them, and just like one of the observations you had made regarding the police, if you look at this time of year, I have a line item for like phones at both EMS. Line item E and fire. I have a new secretary this year because Judy McCarron retired in July, and so she's been taking everything out of one budget instead of a little bit out of each. So one of them's almost depleted, one of them's almost full, but in the end they should wash by the end of the year and stuff. But I kept the expenses on the fire side status quo. The EMS side I went up, and if we want to go to the EMS side and discuss the increases, that is on page way back. That's on page 17 is my EMS, the expense side.
Chief, I have one.
Go ahead, yep, I'm sorry.
Fire before we move
Yep,
over.
what page?
I want to clarify, so right here, the budgeted positions that you have here.
Yep.
How many budgeted positions of firefighters?
So the department has a total of 36 line personnel, of which 4 are shift commanders with the rank of captain. 4 would be line officers with the rank of lieutenant, and the rest are firefighter paramedics.
And then it looks like,
And there's a chief of deputy and a administrator.
and is there two admins here?
Um,
Two part-time?
Right, the two part-time are they're considered called firefighters, but that's the 2 fire chaplains. It's a Catholic and a Protestant chaplain for us.
And then one full-time admin?
Where you seeing the full-time admin?
Well, look at it, I guess union.
It would be Becky Murray, that'd be the center. Union Cena
Right.
is the admin, right, that's a different union, that's the administrator.
So that's the admin.
That's the administrator that runs the office.
And everyone else is fire-related and
Correct.
all positions are filled?
Correct. The only one that's not filled right now, down the very bottom, it says Miles, and I'm working on a replacement as we speak. That's the deputy chief that just retired in December, the very bottom.
So there is one open firefighting position?
Correct. That is funded this year, that hasn't been filled yet because the civil service process is a dog and pony show.
Okay.
It really is a tough.
And in the process itself, do you apply for grants and use grants to supplement the budget?
So we've been very fortunate. The grants are really drying up, but we received 2 years ago the washer dryer and the gear extractors. Are very specific machines made to take the smoke and carcinogens out of our gear, and the dryers to go with it. We just received a grant this current year for some hazmat. So we were able to replace our multi-meters, the 5-gas, 4-gas meters and stuff that we use on all the trucks going to meter buildings. We also were able to replace some of our the exhaust fans, the smoke ejectors, which the ones we had were literally, when I got on the department in the 70s, were here. So we finally got those. They were heavy, bulky, and tough to run, and now we get them in synthetic materials and much more user-friendly and stuff. So we did get another grant this year, and I want to say that this year's grant was like $21,000. We had to come up with $1,000 or something, which I was able to take out of my hazmat. So we do try, but they're very hard to come by, and they're very labor intensive. So for every 5 or 6 that we spend a lot of time putting in, we're lucky to get one, but we still try.
Right. Now, how does it work in the actual process? So did you see the expense go through your budget and the offset will go to the general fund, or you don't put it through the budget?
No, I've been fortunate that any grant we had, we got $140,000 probably 6 years ago for replacement of the portable radios. And I had to come up with $2,000 or $3,000, took that out of my additional equipment line item because it's very user-friendly to spend 5% out of my budget to drain 95% of pure profit for the town, basically. But no, it doesn't. We don't actually run it through anywhere. We apply for them when we get them. Mr. Eunice knows about them. It's stuff that we would have come in for. Matter of fact, the exhaust fans and stuff, if you went to page 21 to my capital plan, you'll see at the bottom that was on the radar screen. And now it's greened out because we're able to get it through a grant instead of us coming to capital to get it and stuff. So, so we do try. And again, it's there are things like we got our air packs. I get the date on there. Probably 10 years ago, there were 15-year shelf life for our Scott packs that we wear. We got those through a grant. That was like a $350,000 grant. We'll never get that grant again. They almost guarantee you that if they give you a grant for something day one, you're never going to get a repeat of that particular item. So that again is on the bottom of my capital sheet saying, just so you'll know, I won't be cheap, but 2025 or something when that comes up, that's going to be a big ticket item that's going to have to get funded somehow at some point. So we tried to bring some of those big items forward just in the planning process even, so they're on my sheet. But we do try. So I did have some increases in the EMS side. I can go through them individually. I can just tell you that the verbiage is there for them, and they're all pretty much related to the fact that we did get the third additional fully equipped mechanical spare ambulance. With that now is an additional rig that I'm maintaining out of that budget, additional licensing fees and stuff, but it'll more than pay for itself where I'm not actually dumping customer service to the neighboring towns. And like I said, there's a two-way whammy when I have ambulances out of service, is that we show up and take care of you. And we sit there with our fire engine, or car 3, the shift commander, and some medics are sitting there taking care of you. And you're like, okay, are we going to go to the hospital? Yeah, we're waiting for Mansfield to come, we're waiting for Easton to come. So there's the customer service side of it where it's a slower response and ties us up, but we also lose the revenue. So it's a double-edged sword there. So it's a customer service issue, but then Mansfield Easton gets to grab the money for that particular transport and stuff. So by having that third ambulance, which again got funded from the ambulance account, allows me now to have an ambulance out of service and still be running my 2 rigs that I'm staffed. So it was great that we got that. I think it's going to definitely pay dividends. We probably dumped almost 50 grand last year in miscellaneous calls to the neighboring towns that had to come in because of the multiple runs. So the newer units are all computerized. Nightmare, computer glitches, and it's out of service for a day or 2 or 3 or 4 waiting for stupid parts and stuff like that. So when that happens now, I've got that second rig ready to go right in and stuff. But again, there are additional fees with that. And one of the big line items was the medical supplies. As you know, the pharmaceuticals are going right off the charts here. And one of the big ones is the Narcan. We're spending a small fortune on Narcan. And it's worth its weight in gold. It's amazing how somebody can be dead and literally within a minute be talking to you. I mean, it is a wonder drug, and it's just, it's not a new drug. We get a kick, there's all kinds of press about it now. We've been carrying it since the 80s on our ambulance. It's just you didn't have the opioid issues that you have now. You had that once in a blue moon heroin overdose back then, but now it's just the carfentanil, the fentanyl, and stuff like that that's just so potent.
Yeah, Narcan, does the town reimburse for that? That might
As
be-
a matter of fact, we're just talking with Lynch there that it's an expense for the schools now, because they outfit their nurses with them and stuff, and there is a shelf life to it and all that. And so again, it's one of those unforeseen expenses that definitely is taking a hit. The other one that I'm sure you all read about was the EpiPens. They just went right, suddenly they said, oh, instead of $100 for a pair, it's $400 for one. And it's like, hello, you know, and again, you have no choice. So they're actually working now, going full circle, where they're going to allow even the EMTs to administer and draw it up like they used to do in the old days before they had the IM injectors, you know. But again, it's crazy the cost. So that's one of the big items. And the other one was the ambulance billing. As you know, we've gone up with our rates. And with that, they get a percentage of it. So if you go up with the rate, you collect them more, but you got to pay a little more to collect more. So we did go up $4,000 in that particular line item. You will find that if you give me $10, I don't spend the $10 if I can help it. So again, you'll see that I've been trying to live within the budget and give money back. But again, I have to plan for a worst case scenario in a lot of this stuff, so I'm not coming back. So that's really my fire and EMS side. My emergency management budget, that's just the same placeholder basically. We actually get a lot of grants through that. I got a great group of volunteers. Deputy Director Ray Cord really works his butt off for me. We do get quite a few grants every year through that for some miscellaneous items and stuff. They're almost replacing some of the call force. We just had the big event at Tweeve on Barrow Street. We had the hazardous material incident. It was an all-day event. And had some good volunteers there that augmented handling the staging area for me and stuff. I did bring a sheet over with me. I had, just to give you an idea of that single event, 26 fire units on scene, not counting my state resources. That was just local mutual aid. I had 6 command cars. We had the 3 Norton cars, plus I had 3 other chiefs show up to back me up. But we had 20 fire engines or ladder trucks. And we had Attleboro's truck, the utility truck set up and stuff in case it went bad. And when I tell you, when the hazmat team got there, and I have a picture on my phone, the first 2 guys in the hazmat team did a real far away look. The container's bulging, there's another whole row of barrels next to it. They have no idea what the product is because it's stuff they were cleaning out from the corners of the big old factory, stuff that's been there probably 100 years. And somehow 2 things got mixed in 1 barrel and sealed, an acid and a base plate. And it took almost 2 weeks for it to finally get to the point where it was reacting. It sounded like the loudest popcorn machine you ever heard, popping popcorn in that barrel with fumes coming out of the building and stuff. So with the other barrels next to it, it was one of the more legit hazmat calls we've had in the area in a long, long time. And it took a long time, but it was a snowy day. So it's never a nice day. It's never a blue sky day when that happens. And yet, you know, we had Lieutenant Robbins did a great job being like my liaison and stuff, and it really worked out well. It's safety mitigated. That's the bottom line, you know. And one of the guys, when they went in with the hazmat suits, it ended up, they put a chemical in it that's supposed to be like a miracle neutralizer. And once they went to mix it, it actually started reacting again. He got covered, but he was in one of the suits, thankfully, and he was able to be decon. So there was no real issue with it. But it was a long event and pricey. It's a good cost to that and stuff. But so I want to bring that up. That's just a real current event example here, right in town. You know.
Yeah, sure. Steve?
Chief, one question.
Yep.
We'll go back to the fire budget.
Which page do you want?
Incentive pay?
Yep.
So can you explain, so the incentive pay, if they have so many licenses, and do they get that paid at the end of the year, beginning of the year?
So the way the incentive pay works, let me get to the page.
It's page 10.
The way the incentives work is they get paid the nearest pay period to December 1st for their incentives.
So they would get each?
They would get that as a single, right. So without getting into a lot of details, a lot of towns do have it as part of their base pay as well. And you do that, everyone has a different pay rate and all that stuff there. Goes to retirement, but that's the nice side of the Fair Labor Standards Act. There's a downside to that your pay is based on hours worked. So if you work overtime during say a 14-day cycle, if that's what you're working off of, if you work overtime during that 14-day cycle, but then you take vacation or sick leave during that same 14-day cycle, the overtime goes away. So there's a downside to it. So the local has never negotiated that in. It's always been this way here since day one, almost like a sort of Christmas club for them. So.
And is the incentive pay pensionable?
The incentives are pensionable.
Okay. And then I'm just So in here, what's the difference between the school here, where it goes back to degrees, and the educational assistance? Is it, this is what they've attained?
So right, when you get your, so you actually get it per credit as well. So if you only have 20 credits, you can actually put in and get paid for the 20 credits, $10 a credit or whatever it
So
is.
it's almost like a twin bill type.
But it's a little stroke to try to get you, a little more educated. I was just telling Link in the back as well that one of the issues we have now, and the reason why I can't come up here and say that I got 10 guys that have their master's degree in the fire service, is that to stay a paramedic, to stay an EMT, the amount of continuing education is just, it's mind-boggling. The amount of stuff that they're not only having to do to stay there, but they're also throwing more stuff at them. So again, that's one of the things. Just to keep a paramedic up is a pretty pricey and time-consuming event. So.
Which is my last one on this.
Yep.
What would be the miscellaneous?
So miscellaneous would be the computer specialist. I have an arson investigator, so he goes to a lot more training and stuff like that there. The mechanic, the EMS director. So these are things that are in addition to the normal routine jobs, they take on additional responsibilities. So there's specialist positions that are listed out in the CBA and stuff. So, So, and again, the emergency management budget's the same as it was last year, no changes, whatever, but we do get lots of good response out of that. That's one of the things that we have in Norton. We have a very good sheltering plan and a sheltering trailer, all fitted and stuff that all came in through grants. And Mansfield has a great rehab unit. They took an old ambulance and outfitted it. So we're trying not to, even though we're not technically a regional entity, we try not to have us all duplicating the same services. So we picked we could go to Mansfield and set up a shelter for them. They do come, and they came through the Tweed incident and was a great resource for us there with their rehab. So I don't know if we have any comments or questions, but what did I do? Is that okay?
It's all right.
I didn't really time myself, but now listen, I believe my godmother is at my house right now, so I'm going to give her a shout out. Hello, Edith. You know, I told her I'd do that for me, but listen, go shut up. You know, let me see that. You know. So, thank you all.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank you.
Pretty good.
Okay. I think that Chief Schleicher was the last presenter tonight. And inspection, yeah. All right, we have to review the minutes of our October 23rd meeting before the fall meeting. Does everyone have a copy of that?
Our next, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Next meeting is Monday, right?
Monday, right, I'll go, yeah, Monday the 5th.
Okay.
At 7 o'clock. I can send you the email to you. I think she emailed
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
One correction, Kaylee. I was in attendance in that meeting and left off the official roll call here.
Especially you made the motions.
I know.
You made your-
I phoned him
Made
in.
all the motions.
Yeah.
Made all the motions.
Yeah, Tom.
The only correction is on the one where the capital improvements of one article. I made a motion to reconsider it, but I abstained from voting because there was directing your treasurer
Okay.
throughout the bar.
Yep. So then there should be one abstention.
I abstained. It said seconded by the group.
Yes.
I move we accept the minutes of October 23rd, 2017 as amended.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. As we just mentioned earlier, our next meeting will be Monday, March 5th, 7 o'clock here, and it'll just be a continuation of the departments and the budget presentations.
We won't be meeting on Wednesday.
Correct.
Motion to adjourn?
Is there a second? All those in favor? Opposed? Meetings?
I have to take Alice to the dentist because she had these teeth, like baby teeth, that
Yes, sir.
needed to come out, but she's had braces, so